All right, welcome to Talking Giants, presented by John Boy Media. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. Got a lot to talk about. We were expecting to go back to our regular schedule, but the 53-man roster cut down was the most controversial one that I've seen. So we had to get into it. We obviously have been getting into it on Twitter. We haven't been that fiery on Twitter in a long time. I really think it's been since the Janoris Jenkins cut. So I mean, we'll get rolling in a second. But Justin, how are you doing? First, I will say thank you to Randy Johnson, who is bringing us this episode. He is our newest Patreon. Now, the last one was by Randy Jackson, and I think that they're starting to put their fake names in there. Now that we have a Randy Jackson and now a Randy Johnson, but nonetheless, we thank you, Randy Johnson. Amazing pitcher. He is our newest Patreon. Patreon.com/TalkingGiants. $2 a month. Get a lot of stuff in it, but we got a lot to get to today. Justin, how are you doing?
Bobby, I think every single person named Randy should just subscribe to the Patreon, and that should be the only people that subscribe to the Patreon. Let's just get
this week
20 runs of Randy's going. I would love that.
I bet we will get a Randy this week. It's like, you know what? It's a sign that I need to join. All right, Justin, but how are you doing? I mean, we'll get into the Ryan Connolly real quick, but anything you want to get off your chest before we get rolling?
Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day. One more week of me laboring in the sun before I go full time with this. So how about that?
I'm also very excited.
I'll become a snobby member of the media. In about a week, I'm going to become very snobby, and I'm going to be a huge media douche.
I'm also very excited that anytime we make any kind of transactional move that involves us picking up a former Dolphin, I've thought to myself, I've watched too much Dolphins tape this offseason. So I'm happy that that's going to be over come next Monday, and I actually get to watch full Giants again, which is nice.
I really can't wait. This is game week. So, but let's get into it. The 53-man roster, and Justin, we've got to start with Ryan Connolly, which was an absolute surprise, Justin. And the bigger surprise to me is that people are like not as upset about this. I get if your nature is to not just be upset about it, then that's fine. But Justin, you know, I said it. I'm not a guy who gets outraged, even when I do disagree with things. I'm not gonna be like oh blah blah blah. Usually I'm like, you know what? I'm not there. I don't see what's going on. But with this, Justin, I mean, I'm ticked off by this. Ryan Connolly, the whole like small sample size with him, Justin. And by the way, feel free to interrupt me because I have a page full of notes. And I could just go and just stop non-talk. So feel free to interrupt me as we go.
Here's one thing about the small sample size, because a lot of people in my mentions today, and we'll get into it, in just in case you didn't know, Ryan Connolly was cut. Big shocker. You know, Bobby and I, we were putting together our 53-man rosters. We were texting each other. We were like, I want to have like a shocker who's going to be cut, but we just don't know. Well, lo and behold, it was certainly a shocker. But the whole thing where people have been critiquing both of us and are being upset about Ryan Connolly being cut. Oh, well, he only played 3 games. Well, Bobby, think about Ryan Connolly's rookie season. Number one, he has impressive college tape. I don't care if he was drafted in the 5th round. He has impressive college tape. Speaks for itself. Number two, rose above the entire depth chart in 2019, where literally Tay Davis and B.J. Goodson were cut. They were cut or P.J. Goodson was traded. They were not on the football team because they felt confident in Ryan Connolly. And then also,
with a coaching staff that was not quick to put rookies in. I mean,
no.
Dexter Lawrence, the critique after week 1 is he didn't get enough snaps here. DeAndre Baker didn't start week 1. Daniel Jones didn't start till week 3. Julian Love we didn't see until he was forced in there. So it wasn't like this coaching staff was quick to throw rookies in there. I mean, Even Slayton, when he came in, there was injuries in that game. Latimer was out. There was no tape, but like they weren't like forcing him in. It was just kind of like he had to play because that's who was there.
Right. But I think the whole point that people had about, hey, well, it's only 3 games. Why are you acting like this sky is a big deal only 3 games in? That's not necessarily the point. It wasn't just 3 games. There was more context to why we were excited about Ryan Connolly. So keep going with your points.
He showed it at Wisconsin. And my thing going into 2019, it's like, hey, what he showed at Wisconsin is great. But that kind of like playing style of playing that speed and aggressiveness, the NFL has a way of taking away people's aggressiveness and confidence. But it translated immediately in the preseason. Like you said, then he moved into the starting role. And when he was in the starting role, I mean, in 3 games, he had 20 tackles, 2 interceptions, a sack, 2 tackles for a loss, QB hits, 2 passes defended. That's awesome stats for 3 games at an inside linebacker spot that the Giants have not had a playmaker there since Antonio Pierce. Since Antonio Pierce, we have not had a playmaker there.
We actually got a fun stat from listener Brian Quigley, who said, went up and looked Giants linebackers redrafted that at any time with Big Blue had 2 interceptions and a sack in a full season, went all the way back to Jesse Armstead.
You talking about rookie linebackers?
I'm guessing this is rookie
because Alec
linebackers.
Ogletree had that. Yeah, but anyways, he flashed and he showed good stuff. And there's a reason why he was such a surprise. It's because of that, Justin. And the thing is, the defense has been, well, guess what? He was injured. And you know what? We're not there. So maybe he looks slow after the injury. That, to me, is the reason why you don't cut him. It's because he's clearly hurt. And we've seen what he can do and what he's flashed. I mean, 2 days ago, we were talking about how this guy was a steal of the draft and a huge part of this team on a team that needed inside linebackers. We haven't had anything inspiring at the inside linebacker spot since Antonio Pierce. Ryan Connolly's play was inspiring. That's why we were heartbroken when the guy tore his ACL. So the fact that he wasn't coming back, like he wasn't looking great right away or was missing practices, that makes me want to keep him on the team more. Because clearly what you're seeing, if he's not playing as well, he's not himself. And Justin, you make the point about guys coming back from ACLs that sometimes it's year 2. You talk about it in your PPP. We've seen it with a guy like Marcus Golden, who had 10 plus sacks, tears his ACL, has a year where he's not great, and then comes back with us and does what he did. He was a playmaker for us. And Justin, it's like, okay, well, we can't afford to wait on guys. Yes, we can. We flat out can. Justin, we have 6 defensive tackles. 6 defensive tackles. And not just because it's just 6 defensive tackles. Let's think about it. Leonard Williams has $16 million invested in him. I think we're going to try and play him as much as possible. Dexter Lawrence, first-round pick. I think we're going to try and play him as much as possible. Dalvin Tomlinson
only saw 55% of the snaps. Dalvin Tomlinson only saw 55% of the snaps, and he was arguably our best defensive tackle last year. So The fact that we kept 6 of those guys when one of them, who you can argue is the best, only saw 55%, head-scratching.
BJ Hill, a third-round pick who we like. Who the issue with BJ Hill is that he's been lost on the rotation because of the 3 guys ahead of him.
And he's number 4.
And I believe in keeping 5. I liked R.J. McIntosh. Some people like Austin Johnson. I would have rather had R.J. McIntosh than Austin Johnson. But to keep both of them, please, as a guy who really likes R.J. McIntosh, just get rid of R.J. McIntosh to keep Ryan Connolly. Please get rid of R.J. McIntosh to keep Ryan Connolly. We have 4 tight ends. We have Evan Ingram, who's supposed to be a dude this year. Caden Smith, who we have all the confidence in the world that he can grow. Levine Toilolo, who is an established blocking tight end. So what do we need Eric Tomlinson for? Now, I'm not going to complain that Eric Tomlinson's on the roster, but I will when Ryan Connolly's not on the roster. So the thing that's like, oh, well, he was coming back slow and we're not there. Yeah, that doesn't change any part of my opinion. If anything, it just makes it stronger, Justin.
Bobby, week 5 of last year, Ryan Connolly tore his ACL against the Minnesota Vikings. Hasn't even been a year. Has not even been a full season where Ryan Connolly has still, tore that ACL, and he hasn't even had a full year worth of recovery. So you want to know what? And I'm, going to basically paraphrase what you said. I'm not going to expect him to be full speed. And Bobby, are we not a rebuilding team? Are we not a rebuilding team that is looking for long-term answers and long-term talent at positions of need? So I don't get this argument where people online are saying, oh, the Giants are a rebuilding team. You got to trust the process. You got to trust this. You got to trust that. Rebuilding team. But then when you're justifying why Ryan Connolly is cut, oh, he's not going to perform now. He's not going to perform now for Joe Judge and this football team. But, and then even, obviously we can point to this position. You would rather have Eric Tomlinson lost to waivers or Austin Johnson lost to waivers instead of Ryan Connolly. But even just looking at the positional group as a whole, I would rather have an uninspiring Ryan Connolly in 2020 struggling to coming back from an ACL, who I know is going to hopefully be ready to rock and roll and pop off in 2021. Nobody can answer that question, by the way. But the data does show that once you are coming back into that second year, you're going to be ready to rock and roll. That's what the data does show, and that's what we do know. You don't know whether he's going to come back fully or not come back fully. But Bobby, even just looking at the interior linebacker depth chart itself right now, I would rather have an uninspired Ryan Connelly in 2020 than TJ Brunson.
Yeah, TJ Brunson, we tried, and people were like calling us negative Nancy's. We try to be positive, especially when it comes to like draft picks. Like TJ Brunson, do you realize how hard it was to find a positive clip of that guy? I'm serious. I went through 3 games. I found one clip where he showed aggressiveness. He's slow. He doesn't really do anything in coverage. He's uninspiring. In fact, he's so uninspiring that I'm bothered that the Giants took him over Tay Crowder. I like Tay Crowder a lot, in which we'll talk about that. If they was like, hey, we got to keep Tay Crowder or an ACL Ryan Connolly, and they went Tay Crowder, I would be like, okay, you know what? I understand that. They don't trust that he's going to come back. But there was ways to keep Connolly on the roster. And it's not like you even keep all your guys active on game day anyway. So they could have kept them unactive. And I've heard they kept injured David Mayo. They're putting David Mayo on the IR. Okay. And they did that today. And Justin, and then we heard no one's going to claim a guy coming off the ACL. Wrong. The Minnesota Vikings, who have a really good defense, claimed him. And Justin, I had this thought like 20 minutes before we recorded. Who played us after the game where Ryan Connolly got hurt? He got hurt against Washington. The Minnesota Vikings played us. So you know what that means? They were preparing for the New York Giants, and they watched 3 games of film before that game and said, this Ryan Connolly dude can play. They were probably like, I'm glad we're not playing this dude this week. Like, he's the perfect guy to stop an outside zone Dalvin Cook kind of guy. This dude can play, and they claimed him. And it's not like they're hurting for linebackers, Justin. I mean, they have Anthony Barr, Kendricks, Troy Dye, who they drafted him out of Oregon, a guy we like. Eric Wilson, who only played like 33% of the snaps, but had production when he played. And the Vikings had like the record for draft picks. Okay, if they wanted TJ Brunson, they would have got TJ Brunson. They had a record amount of draft picks. I think it was like 14 or something like that. Like we had 10, and we thought that was a lot. So it's not like that. And the Vikings are the very same team that cut Devontae Downs. That's had him in through 2 camps and didn't want him. And Mike Zimmer is a great talent, is a great scout for defensive talent. Okay, you may not like him as a head coach, but for defensive talent, I mean, he has kept on putting talent on that defense. Even when they've lost guys, he's put talent on that defense. And I trust Mike Zimmer as a defensive coach. I talked to my buddy who does some college stuff, and he's a Vikings fan. He's like, I can't believe you guys let this guy go. And we actually had talked about, because I guess he does some kind of keeper league with defensive players, and he asked me, it's like, hey, is Connolly healthy? I want to take him. So crazy that they did that. So, and then Devontae Downs clearly had a better camp. The same people that are telling us that we're not there are telling us that Devontae Downs had a better camp. I mean, did we hear anything about like some crazy plays Downs had? All that we heard from the beat reporters, Justin, is that, hey, credit to this guy. They obviously believe in him because they're playing with the starters. But we never heard about plays where Devontae Downs is blowing up. And I hope Devontae Downs does. And maybe he does make a jump. I'm not saying that he couldn't. And that doesn't even really make a difference if we keep Connolly or not. So,
but Bobby, it's not just about 2020 though. It's not just about 2020. What, you signed Devontae Downs from the Minnesota Vikings? What, he's going to be here for a year? The whole point of drafting and having good quality draft picks is that they're here for the next 4 years and they're cheap. So it's about giving up on talent. That's why the Ryan Connolly release is so frustrating, at least to me. That's my big point. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but really what it boils down to is the Giants are a rebuilding team and they just gave up on a talented football player. Save me it's the only 3 games. Save me I'm coming off the torn ACL. Save me that he's barely participated in camp. Again, week 5 of the 2019 season, he tore his ACL. I'm not going to expect him to be out. No, I thought it was week 5 because it was
he did play against Minnesota.
I thought he did play against Minnesota, so it was week 4. My apologies. So, okay. 1 week off. I apologize. But save me all of that. The Giants gave up on a talented football player. That is what we know. We don't say, well, you don't know this, you don't know that, you don't know that. We know based off of his college tape, he rose above the depth chart, his preseason last year, and his 3 games. We have all of that sample size, not a ton, but more than your observation that you have, if you're listening to this, more of the observation that you have and what you know about Giants camp this year. The Giants gave up on a talented player on a rebuilding team. On a rebuilding team that only has Blake Martinez guaranteed for the next 2 years And then after that, what do we have an interior linebacker? We have Tay Crowder, Cam Brown, who's arguably an edge rusher, and TJ Brunson. Yippee! Right. All 7th round and 6th round picks. Yeehaw!
So I think we've gotten off our chest why we disagree with it. So now let's talk about why it's not wrong to disagree with it. I didn't really want to do this because it's like then we're reacting to Twitter and stuff, and it's like not all our listeners like have Twitter or even social media. Like we bring in listeners from Instagram, Facebook, and some don't have any, you know. Well, I mean, one of our favorite guys said he's like, "Hey, Twitter's too toxic. I'm not going on there anymore." Because if you're listening to this for your first time, and I think some people will because they've seen our reaction, they're like, "Man, these guys are just whiners and they're negative." We get called out for being too like we get called homers all the time. We try to look things in a positive light for the most part, Justin, and especially like when we do disagree with things, you don't hear us like whining and complaining.
No,
I mean,
and let me just say this:
where they've done things we've disagreed with. And we don't whine and complain. The last time I was this mad on social media was Janoris Jenkins being cut, and we didn't get anything in return for him. That was the last time, and we're not going to revisit that whole thing. Yeah. And so I was very pissed off because you know what? I feel like we've proven ourselves to be hardworking, to be reasonable. And I honestly felt like a politician the past 2 days. I felt like a politician to where everyone was like, you know what? This guy speaks truth. I like what he says. And then I agreed with one thing from the other side of the aisle, and they're like, "Oh, he's a fake, he's a phony, blah blah." That's what I felt like the last 2 days. I felt like, have I not proven that I'm not a whiner and a complainer? And we'll get to reasons why it's okay to say these things. But I was pissed off. I just felt like a politician, and I get our loyal people aren't like that. But you know what? The numbers we've been bringing in, there were people that listen to this regularly and we're just like and treat us like we're idiots. Like we don't try to be positive and act realistic all the time. Like that's what we pride ourselves on. We pride ourselves on not being clickbait. Okay. There's been times where it's like, oh, you could do like that's why we don't write like clickbait articles or anything. So it's aggravating.
Yeah, Bobby, we're fans. At the end of the day, we're fans. But I will say, this was the first time in a while myself that I've been critical of the team, and I've seen names, and I've seen people and faces, or lack of faces, and Twitter handles that have popped up in my mentions that I've never seen before. And they've been acting like that I've been criticizing the team for a very long time, when granted, Bobby, some people may not even know this, because I try to play it cool, and I'm not going to just shove it in your face. I disagree with the Saquon Barkley pick. I still disagree with it. And I think we held on to Eli Manning longer than we should have. But am I saying that every single week, every single episode, and whenever I can? No, because I'm trying to play it cool because that's reasonable. You're muted, Bobby.
Sorry. We're trying to be reasonable. And the thing that people have been repeating over to us, we realize that we're not in the building. We don't understand things. Like, we had a conversation about like Grant Haley 2 weeks ago, and we're like, man, we should play a safety. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like we don't know what's going on.
Oh, and also, Bobby, did he not play safety?
He did.
He actually did before he got cut.
We were right on that.
But let me say one more thing about that, and then we'll move on. We'll move on to some other stuff.
Well, no, I have like 5 more bullet points.
Okay, so well, hold on. But before, just about like Twitter, social media, and everything like that. What I don't like being criticized, maybe when I'm being a little bit critical, I don't like being criticized of, oh, we just have to wait and see. Do you know how boring our show would be, and ourselves as personalities, and even, again, we're fans. You know how boring we would be as fans who talk about the Giants if we just sat here with our hands under our butts and our hands under our asses, and we just said, oh, we're just going to wait and see for what happens. You know how boring this show would be?
And sometimes we are boring like that because we do like play that. I mean, I got so much heat from Pat Shermer. Like, for example, Hal Hunter, the offensive line coach last year. I got so much heat because I was like, hey, I don't know what Hal Hunter's doing. Like, I offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, you can criticize in-game decisions. But an offensive line coach, like, how am I supposed I don't know what to criticize. I'm not seeing what he's doing wrong. So it's like I can see that things are happening bad on the field, and people are like, oh, you're defending this guy. Same with things with Shermer. So it's like we're not the people that are just looking to go and complain. So here's a few things I heard. One is Carter Coughlin he's a similar type player. He doesn't play the same position. Carter Coughlin is an edge rusher. So there's one that bothered me. Another thing, not like he's Lawrence Taylor. You guys are acting like we're cutting a Lawrence Taylor. It's like, no, we're acting like we're cutting a guy with a lot of promise, who everybody in the fan base loved 2 weeks ago. Okay, like what if I can imagine if we cut Darius Slayton, like he's a 5th rounder. He had a hamstring injury last year. It's not like he's going to have all those touchdowns every year. It's a small sample size. It's not like this guy's Larry Fitzgerald. Like, would we do that for Darius Slayton? Because
No.
you could make similar arguments. Or if Slayton gets hurt if Slayton gets hurt this season, God forbid, will we have the same view? Because I'm not going to give up on Darius Slayton after 1 year, and maybe he doesn't come back, but I'm not going to give up after 1 year. I'm going to hold on to a talent. And people will see how reasonable we are when we start talking about Corey Coleman, because people freaked out about Coleman. We didn't. And then the whole like trust Joe Judge. I do trust Joe Judge, but here's the thing. Do you think Joe Judge is not going to make any mistakes this year? I've loved what Joe Judge has done, but he's going to make a mistake. Like he will make a mistake this year, and that doesn't mean he's bad, because there's no like Bill Belichick makes mistakes every year. He will make a mistake this year, and the similar argument is the one I'm hearing is the same argument you could have made for when Curtis Riley was kept over Darian Thompson or Adams. It's the same exact argument. Okay, it's so the fact that I'm just disagreeing before we know in concrete what's going to happen, I feel like it's okay. Like I believe in this guy. I don't want to change my opinion on him because he was cut. I had a lot of problems for this guy. And no, do I think he's going to be the next Lawrence Taylor? No. But could he have been the best Giants linebacker in the next 10 years? Absolutely. Find me a linebacker who played as aggressive as he did, as instinctual as he did since Antonio Pierce. We talked about this on his PPP. No one disagreed with us then. You can't find one. And it's not to say that, and it's more a hit on the Giants than it is, but people are like, well, the Giants are never going to find a good inside linebacker. It's like, well, we haven't. Now, I got hope for Tay Crowder. I think Blake Martinez is a good player. When there's times where we disagree, like Julian Love, I thought he was going to play corner. You don't see me whining that Julian Love's not going to play corner. I'm like, you know what? They view him as a safety. I'm not a coach. They view him as a safety. Let him play safety. Blake Martinez. Neither one of us would like go out and sign Blake Martinez or any of those inside linebackers.
I said to not sign Blake Martinez.
Yeah, but you didn't hear us like whining, like how dare they sign someone we disagree with. Like we
found the
looked at him
positives
as a player. We said, hey, look, he's a good player. I may not agree on giving a big contract to an inside linebacker. I'd rather have that money elsewhere, but I get it. I'm not going to show up whining. So the character attack we've taken the last 2 days has been nuts, because like we get called homers. That's my biggest critique is that I'm too positive. So just know that when I am negative every once in a while, it's kind of deserved. Like I'm not just doing it to just be like a negative Nancy. Okay. Like I get that there's people like that and they're annoying. Like I admit those people who are always negative are annoying, but don't come at us and say we're just, overreacting. So it's been aggravating. I feel like we need to move on though.
We're going to see Curtis Riley week 1.
No, the Steelers ended up cut. He made the 53 man, but he I guess he got cut today.
Oh, no. I'm so upset.
I am upset. I wanted to face him week 1. So like I said, I trust Joe Judge, but I don't think he's going to be perfect. Okay. And so I disagreed with this decision. Doesn't mean
and
I
also
think
one
Joe
more
Judge
thing
is
on that.
failure.
One more thing on that.
All right, we're like 20 minutes in, so we got to go.
I know. But also here you want reasonable. Stop talking about us, Bobby. We're great. You want reasonable in terms of putting this on Joe Judge, and you want hey, we're not in the building. You want a we're not in the building take. How are we supposed to know? Everybody thought that Marcus Golden franchise tender was all Joe Judge. Oh, Joe Judge is a cap visionary. Blah blah blah. Comes out that it's Kevin Abrams. So I'm a person that really does believe in the Giants' hierarchical structure, where I really do think the owner, he's going to have say on literally everything. The general manager, he's going to be the guy that's going to do the player personnel, and the coach is going to be the guy that's going to coach. And I really don't know how much intersection there is between the GM and the coach. So I believe in that. So people are saying Joe Judge. Well, we don't know how much influence he's had.
Impact on cutdowns than this, but I do agree. This was just like there was no like cutting Connolly is not the same as cutting, I almost said a name and I won't say it. Isn't the same as cutting like Jaron Williams, and that was the thing. Also, this was a surprise. Like the beat reporters who were there, none of them, like, they said miss, but the beat reporters were like looking for someone to be like, this would be my surprise cut. They were saying like BJ Hill and like Corey Ballantyne, who, like, to me, like, no way they get cut. So not a single person said Ryan Connolly is going to be cut. So this is a huge surprise, okay? Yeah. Like, the beat reporters who were there every day, not one of them hinted that Connolly would be cut. I mean, we had Rosenblatt on Friday who said he looked good. And Joe Judge said he looked healthy, but that's also coach talk, so I'm not going to get into that. Can we move on? Yeah. It's been 20 minutes. All right, let's move on, because the Giants did a lot of other stuff. It's cut down day. This one was not as controversial, but still controversial. The Giants made 3 claims, which we'll get to. We'll start with Corey Coleman was cut, along with Sean Chandler waived. This was to make room for the three waiver wire additions. Justin, me and you like Coleman. He's definitely got talent. We thought he was going to be number 4 wide receiver, especially when Sills went down and then he made the roster. But this is a decision where it's like, hey, the coaches are there, and as much as we like the talent that Coleman was coming out of college, like, he hasn't done it on the NFL field yet. You know what I'm saying? And, like, so that is why I'm not mad about this. It's because Coleman hasn't proven much. And then we'll talk about the receiver, Damian Radley. Like, he's shown just as much, if not more, than what Corey Coleman has, especially in the last 2 years.
Yeah, he has shown more in the last 2 years. And that's no fault of Corey Coleman. I'm not going to fault the guy for tearing his ACL. But hey, if you want to have the take about Ryan Connolly about showing production, right? This guy Radley has actually showed more production over the last 2 seasons than Corey Coleman has. So yeah. I'm disappointed with Corey. Like, I'm disappointed that ended. Former first-round pick, ton of talent, ton of production that he put up in college. We got him off the scrap heap for the Cleveland Browns. We thought that we could turn this kid around, and we thought that he can be something. We thought that maybe he can be a wide receiver 3 last year, but with good drafting, now I think having Darius Slayton here for 4 years on a cheap rookie deal, that's going to be more valuable than maybe having to re-sign Corey Coleman to a decent amount of money. So there you go. That's another benefit of good drafting. So for wide receiver 4, I'm not banging my head against the table. Wide receiver 4 is a very replaceable position. Wide receiver as a whole is also a pretty replaceable position as well. It's hard to replace very good players at the position, but if Golden Tate is going to go down this year, I'm not going to really be banging my head against the table, because I know that we're going to have somebody that's going to come up and he's going to be able to catch some balls. And this guy Radley hasn't had a drop in the last 2 years, so I think that's pretty cool. But we can get into him as a player. Do you have more on Corey Coleman?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because, he is a hell of a talent, and it's sad that he hasn't produced anything. And it seemed like he was having a good camp. I mean, he led the first scrimmage in yards and catches. Maybe he ends up back. I doubt at this point. But let's talk about Damian Radley. So let's go through the waivers real quick. Damian Radley, we don't have to go real quick, but 6'2", 200 pounds, 25 years old, was taken in the 6th round of the 2018 draft. Spent the last 2 years with the Browns. This last season, he had 12 catches, 200 yards, and a touchdown. The year before, he had 13 catches, 144 yards. That year, he had 12% of the snaps. This past season, he had 20% of the snaps. Justin, I only watched one game of his, Week 17, where he did have a touchdown that game. He's got good speed. He can burn a little bit. When before Coleman was cut, I was like, hey, there's no reason why this guy can't go and be the guy behind Coleman. And obviously the Giants viewed him higher than they did Coleman. And Freddie Kitchens, who was in the building, has the experience with him the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, he has some yards after the catch ability. He's got some yak ability. Averaged around 15 yards per catch in 2019, which I always like to have a big play guy coming in here. 50% catch rate, but the fact that he has not had a single drop ball in the last 2 years, I'm not going absolutely crazy over the low catch rate, as if a guy's not dropping the ball, hey, scheme, whatever. But I watched some highlights. There were some highlight clips on YouTube, and I just basically put them all together to form a minute video on him. Bobby, I liked him. I thought he kind of utilized the route tree a little bit, largely an outside wide receiver. So if Golden Tate's status is in jeopardy for Week 1, which I know he could be back. I know he could be getting back up to full speed, but regardless, hamstring injuries in the summer scare me. If you're a running back, wide receiver, or just a player that really has to run a lot, hamstring injuries are scaring me. Bobby, I feel decently good about Radley going out there and doing a job and being all right for us on the outside. If one of these guys, Shep, Tate, if one of those guys goes down.
Yeah, Shep probably would move back to the slot like he did to start last season.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I guess this can talk about a wide receiver position as a whole. Obviously, the 3 undrafted free agents who we liked, all are on the practice squad: Austin Mack, Benjamin Victor, and Derek Dillon, as well as Alex Bachman, who everyone said had an impressive camp. And I think both me and you, I had him on my 53-man prediction. So with guys being able to move up and down from the practice squad this year, I expect one of those guys to get PT this year. We said it going into camp, like, hey, like one of those guys has to stand out. Clearly, one of the 3 from this year didn't. Sills seemed to be the guy standing out, and he broke his foot, which sucks because I wanted to see him out and play. So those guys, I think it's confident to say that they'll get some run this year. Hopefully it's not much. Hopefully we don't have any injuries, but I do think one of those guys from the practice squad will get run, whether it's Bachman, Mack, Victor, or Dillon.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of people were concerned at first the fact that they only brought back 5 wide receivers, and especially I was kind of privately concerned about that. Still you got to wait for just the
I'm a
waiver
6
wire.
wide receiver guy too.
But also you needed that extra guy because you don't know. We don't know as fans Tate's status for week 1, and hamstring injuries, they absolutely scare the bejesus out of me. So
yeah,
that's why I was hoping they would really roll with 6.
With the new rules, you can protect like 4 practice squad players, and you can move them up and down without having them subject to waivers. So, and that goes from week to week. So it could be Bachman and Mack one week, and it could be Victor and Dillon the next week of who they move up, without having to subject them to waivers. So that makes, I think that had something to do with putting those guys on practice squads. Like, we can bring them up and down. And I think that's why they went 5 wide receivers, is because of that ability to bring them up and down.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Next,
it's like we got a AAA farm system now.
Yeah, it's the alternate squad. Next on the list, Adrian Colbert, 6'2", 205 pounds. He'll be 27 in a month. Picked in the 7th round of the 2017 draft. He's played with the 49ers. Last year played with the Dolphins, Justin. Got a good amount of running.
Yeah.
I went and watched his Week 17 game against the Patriots. I know you watched another game of him. He obviously has that familiar with Patrick Graham. He plays deep safety, like a true deep safety. So he's not a guy who's going to come up and fill the alley and make tackles. Like, he plays deep safety and actually has like some good speed and decent range, to where if he's back there, I'm confident. Like, I'm not like worried about him, whereas like Antoine Bethea is like blah blah. Now he could come out and suck, and that would all change. So I think he'll be the main backup, especially with Chandler moving down, or Chandler being waived, Justin. So I think what happens is if Peppers gets hurt, you move Love to the strong safety spot, and then Colbert goes in free safety. And obviously, if Love goes out, they move Colbert to free safety. And I think I think he will get on the field with some free safety looks, and I think they'll have either have Love and him deep, or just have him deep and have Love and Peppers both down. I think Graham is going to have some fun with that safety spot, where we were kind of worried about it when Hardage gets cut, and it's like we don't have the personnel to do any free safety stuff.
Yeah, Montre Hardage, I thought that was a surprise cut, but with Adrian Colbert coming in, and I say Montre Hardage is a surprise cut just because he had the familiarity, and we saw that he was getting a ton of reps in those scrimmages. So that was a little bit surprising, but the fact that they bring Adrian Colbert in, Bobby, and I'm going to watch more. I'm really, really, because right now I'm high on that signing. I really am, because I've said this over and over again this offseason about how I'm very scared about we don't have a single high deep center field safety on this team. Jabril Peppers has the athleticism. We believe that Julian Love can do it, but their strengths, that's not where their strengths are. And the whole point, I think, of this Joe Judge coaching staff is, what are these guys' strengths and how can we maximize those strengths? Adrian Colbert, I watched a half of the Dolphins-Giants game, And then I kind of got tired of it because I'm like, well, Eli Manning's not really going to stretch the field. So there wasn't really much for a single high safety that he can do. However, there was one play that went down the left sideline going towards Darius Slayton. And Eli Manning actually drops back, and within 3 seconds, he's launching a ball deep down the left sideline because there's pressure in his face. But Colbert is reading that immediately. He's doing his backdrop and he's stepping back. But then as soon as he sees Eli's eyes, as soon as he sees the ball starting to move, he's going and he's flying. Very tough to make plays at a single high free safety spot. It's very tough, especially when you're literally
that was a great throw by Eli. I remember sharing that clip.
Yeah, it was. Slayton should have caught it. There might have even been PI. So, well, yeah, it was. Yeah, Eli did have some nice throws down the left sideline to Slayton, even in.
I just missed Eli. Like, it's just hitting me.
Yeah.
Like, I might start crying. Like, it just hit me. Like, we're going into a year without Eli. This is the first game week without Eli.
Focus. Adrian Colbert. He was. Eli. So think of this. He was literally on the 50-yard line by the NFL logo. Adrian Colbert has to run all the way to the opposite sideline to make a play about maybe 30 yards downfield. And while he doesn't actually make a play on the football, he's right there. And if Darius Slayton finds a way to maybe make that catch, he's right there to deliver a blow. He's right there to deliver a forearm. You know, even if Darius Slayton hears footsteps, he might drop that ball because he's scared of a hit. So that was some good plays. And I put on another game because I was like, well, Eli wasn't really airing the ball out that game. So I put on the Eagles game. And right from the start, Adrian Colbert makes a really nice play in the first quarter. They were in 12 personnel, Philadelphia was, and they were in the red zone. 2 tight ends to the left, 2 wide receivers to the right. There's a tight end that's basically running one was running a post and the other one was running a vertical to the right side of the end zone. Linebacker messes up. Linebacker misses his assignment. So Colbert, his eyes are on the quarterback, but he's sensing that the linebacker made a mistake. He's staying with that one tight end that's running right towards him. So then Wentz is able to read, even though the linebacker made a mistake, that tight end isn't open. So then therefore, once he sees that Wentz's eyes is going to go to the other tight end who's running a post, who's being covered by a cornerback, Colbert's going to go and make a play on the football, and it was really, really good. I've liked his instincts. I've liked the way that he's reacted to some plays. And I'm going to watch more because I'm really excited for his potential because he is a single high free safety and we don't have that guy on our team right now.
He's definitely gonna get some run this year. Next on the claim list, Jackson Barton, 6'7", 310 pounds, 25 years old, 7th round pick in 2019. Justin, I watched like 2 minutes of film and I was like, you know what, I'm not doing it. They cut Chad Slade for him. I'm fine with it. I went and looked at his combine stuff. Shuttle 4.66 would have been second in the tackle class, and I always say that's the most important speed measurement for offensive linemen is the 20-yard shuttle. It would have been second in the offensive tackles, tied with our boy Andrew Thomas. So. That's how you know he's going to be good. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch some preseason Chiefs from last year, but I'm not going to go too crazy on the 4th offensive tackle.
I like that they brought in I like how they brought in another tackle. You know, because Matt Parrott being the only backup tackle, you know, Fleming goes down or Thomas goes down. I like that, but also I think this is the next thing that we have to talk about. Spencer Pulley. Spencer Pulley is still on the team, and we thought that was clear as day, that the writing was on the wall, that Halapio was going to be the backup and Spencer Pulley was going to be gone. And we thought that we were going to be smart and save the money and try to roll over some money for the cap next year. So where are you on that?
I think Judge clearly thought Pulley was better, and I think that was what his selling point was when they were doing it. It's like, hey, I think he's the better player, and I don't want to cut the better player to save $2 million. I think that's what it was. And good on Halapio. I do root for Halapio. Obviously, he's not good. I thought he'd be a solid backup. But he didn't want to do the practice squad thing. I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to be a third string center either. But I really think that's what went down is Judge is like, hey, Pulley's the better player. I want Pulley. So it's hard to argue with that. Even though we would have liked to save $2 million, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, if Gates were to go down, I think we'd like to have the better player. So I'm okay with that. Let's just hope Gates doesn't go down. So that on the offensive line. We talked about defensive tackle with Ryan Connelly. That's kind of crazy. Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin, I believe they were kept solely because they didn't want to expose them to waivers. You know what I'm saying?
You can make the same argument with, I guess, TJ.
We're not going back on that. We're not doing that all over again. We're not doing that all over again.
I'm gonna clip that noise.
The real tragedy, which someone said it'd be funny if we did, like everyone's like expecting this show because we've been, crying online, if we just came out and did the first 10-15 minutes on like, how did they cut Alex Tanney? They cut Alex Tanney, Cooper Rush, only 2 QBs, which I'm a big fan of 2 QBs.
Yeah.
Cooper Rush stays with the practice squad, so he's the emergency backup still. We are gonna miss Alex Tanney. Got a couple people that bought the shirt. Go buy the Alex Tanney the GOAT shirt. Giants all-time leading completion percentage. Like I said, it was supposed to be a day of having some fun with that, and then the Ryan Connelly news within 20 minutes totally ruined all that fun. I mean, I made a breakdown video on Alex Tanney. It was supposed to be good fun, and the Connelly news just came and was like, yeah, thought you're gonna have fun today? Yeah, right, buddy.
Joe Judge is not a fan of fun. We know this.
Well, he dove on the football. I mean, that was
fun.
I'm surprised no one made a meme about me with that. I mean, that's very bad content on the followers. Was a very good idea for a meme. So we'll miss you, Alex Tanney, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Maybe we will talk soon.
We gonna talk about corner?
I mean, to me, I don't think. I mean, it's what we expected.
It actually is exactly what I got the depth chart exactly correct with Brandon Williams, idiom, and then thank you. It's the only thing I've gotten correct in my life. However, I'm technically wrong because I said, well, I think there's going to be a lot of movement. So I thought that I was going to be wrong, but me thinking that I was going to be wrong, I was actually right. There may be some movement. I'm not willing to say that is set in stone at corner yet. So that's our take. Wait until we record either tomorrow or Tuesday.
Yeah, if we might not even do any of those. So I mean, do we have anything else? I mean, we've spent. I mean, what are we at? We're at 42 minutes, so I mean, we're good to go. We kind of hit on everything. Obviously, if this is your first time listening, we're not like some shows where it's just moaning the whole time. But the Connolly stuff, we had to set some stuff straight, and I just heard so many bad arguments for it. And then we missed one. People said he didn't fit the scheme. That's a bad argument. Connolly fits any scheme. If they were trying to play him at outside linebacker as a pass rusher, yeah, maybe you couldn't argue that, but that's not what they were trying to
show us any other Giant content creators that have talked about Patrick Graham's scheme and Patrick Graham's defense and what he could or what he could not do more than us. So,
all right, let's not pat ourselves on the back. We did a little bit of patting ourselves on the back today.
I'm sorry,
but it was needed, okay? Because people started coming at us, and it felt good though. Like, it felt good to let the claws out. I hadn't let the claws out in a while. And it's funny going into this year. It's like social media is not going to bother me at all this year. Nobody's going to say anything on Twitter that bothers me. I'm just going to let it roll off my back. That didn't happen. And if you're mad that we spent 20 plus minutes on it, just know that is your fault, because we would have just spent 5-10 minutes talking about why we disagree with it, but we did 20 minutes because everyone told us to stop whining. So that's your fault. All right, that's an episode. The next episode, if there is some big news or a lot of news, we'll try and do a Wednesday show, because this was supposed to be a Tuesday show. We'll try and do that. But if not, the next show will be game day. This is the last different intro. We go back to our regular intro schedule. So Friday will be a Pittsburgh Steelers preview. So get ready for it. It's game week. Ryan Connolly, it's behind us now. No more talking about it. It's game week. Let's go Giants. Let's go Joe Judge. Let's go New York Giants linebackers. Let's go Daniel Jones. Let's go beat the Steelers. And let's go Big Blue.